Hi everyone, to those of you who can hear us. Welcome to the first webinar from I Want to Be a Dentist, which is on your personal statement workshop. And today I'm joined by two lovely co-directors, Omar and Mira. I'll let them introduce themselves and then we'll begin the webinar. So Omar.
Hi everyone, my name is Omar. I'm going to be a second year dental student at King's, and I'm going to be co-hosting this webinar for you guys.
Hi, I'm Mira. I'm a going to third year now dentist at Fenway.
Great. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Raza. I'm a second year dental student at the University of Leeds, and I'm also the founder of I Want to Be a Dentist. And today's webinar is all about your personal statement workshop. What we'll be doing is giving you tips on how you can improve your personal statement, how you can start it, important things that you need to know. So put together this presentation to talk you through everything, as well as give you a good insight into what makes a good personal statement, show you examples of our personal statements, and give you generic tips and techniques along the way that you can use to improve your own personal statements when it comes to writing it for dentistry. So we'll begin now. So what is the point of your personal statement? I'll let Omar begin.
All right, guys. So really, the point of the personal statement is that universities want to know several things about you and who you are as a person before they can actually let you into the university, of course. So the first is whether you have the necessary character traits needed to be a dentist, your motivations for studying dentistry, and whether you have a realistic understanding of the field and the future of dentistry as well. And this is really all they have to get to know you before they can interview and assess you from your grades and your Ucat score. So it's really important that you not only express yourself, but also essentially sell yourself to the universities so that you have the best chance of getting an interview. Next slide, please, Ravi. All right, so
sorry.
Do you want to go for this, Mira?
No, go ahead.
All right, okay. So during your personal statement, you want to basically mention some really important key skills and traits that you've shown and that you've shown in the past, whether that's for your volunteering, your hobbies, interests, work experience, and you want to essentially link them to all to these different skills. And now there's some more, but these are the main ones. So you have communication, leadership, teamwork, empathy, manual dexterity, reflection, trustworthiness, resilience, and patience. And next slide, please. All right, so I'll hand over back to Raza, I think, to help you guys get started. Raza, I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. Kind of embarrassing, but many people, I was just saying, so when we start off by thinking about how to get started with your personal statement, many people feel as though the statement is such a big task and it's kind of hard and they'll never get the perfect statement, whereas that's not true because everybody else's journey is kind of unique and everybody else is unique. So when it comes to writing your personal statement, there's a lot of things that you can talk about and actually write about before you've even submitted your statement. So I think a few things that we've put on the screen here is, firstly, start off by gathering your thoughts on why you actually want to study dentistry. Now, this reason is quite personal. It's going to be different for everybody else. And there's a lot of things that you can include which basically state why it is that you want to study dentistry. What you need to do is brainstorm your past ideas and extracurricular activities that you're thinking about talking in your personal statement. And what this will do is make it quite easier for you to actually structure your statement in terms of writing about your work experience, writing about what it is that you are good at, what your weaknesses are potentially, essentially what is the reason that you want to study dentistry. That is what really makes a personal statement stand out. Somebody who's got the right balance of not just self-praise, but also setbacks and showing that you're a resilient individual. Because when it comes to dentistry, it's a very tough and demanding course. So it helps the university understand that you're in it for the long run. Like you're not just in it just to, you know, get in and then that's it. Like you'll do your own thing, but you're in it because you'll make a good dental student. And that's what really separates like a good and like a poor personal statement, if that makes sense. Another thing that I forgot to mention was, if you guys have any questions like while we're talking, you can of course put them in the chat, and we'll reply to them. And we're also going to have a Q&A at the end, as well as a little bit of a surprise in terms of a giveaway for you guys. So make sure you stick around until the end. But yeah, that's something that I had a few tips to talk about in terms of getting started. And the thing you also need to understand that it's going to take you quite a lot of time. Like, you won't get your personal statement right the very first time. It's going to take you quite a lot of drafts. Like, I know for myself, Omar and Mira, I know it took me like a good like 4 or 5 drafts till I got my final version. I'm presuming it was like the same for you guys, because you can't get it right in the first go, and that's completely fine. So you need to adapt to that and take it from there, like take one step at a time. And of course, this all happens if you start early. So if you leave your personal statement quite late, then you're going to rush for timing and you're going to struggle when it comes to nearer the deadline. And of course, once you've actually written your statement and you think that this is like the right one, always get someone to proofread it, because what you've written may sound good to you because you're the author of that, but some parts may not completely make sense and need rewording, or can be worded even better than how you've written them. So always get somebody to pre-read your statement before submitting it. And that's a few of the tips I had on getting started. The rest are kind of on the screen, which I hope you guys can have read. And just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can always watch it back. Another thing that I quickly wanted to mention was, you always want to apply the skills that you have into your personal statement. So little things like working in, like I've given an example of a football team. It actually helps you build teamwork skills, because in dentistry, you actually work in a dental team. And as little as that may sound to you, but for the interviewer, it shows that you're an individual who can adapt to working individually as well as working in a group of people. And I think that's really key. But yeah, those are just some of the things I had on getting started. So let Mira take over.
So these are some examples of things that you might have already done, which maybe you didn't know that you could put in your personal statement. Of course, volunteering at a care home be an obvious choice, but other things like your part-time job. Ideally, of course, it might be in a healthcare environment as like a GP receptionist, but it doesn't have to be. So if you've worked in retail, in hospitality, as a waiter, waitress, in a restaurant, all of those things can come in handy if you are struggling with what to put in, because obviously because of COVID, it has been really hard to get more relevant work experience. So I think universities will be a little more lenient on what they can accept as demonstrations of skills you have. So for example, if you are working in retail, or you can get a job in retail before deadline, it can be a demonstration of communication skills, of time management, doing a job on top of A-levels, commitment. These are all things you can use in self-statement that might not be as obvious. So working at a care home, if you can, if they may not take volunteers, but if you can get there as a job, as a carer, I know there are, well, in my city, there are some vacancies for that. Fundraisers, soup kitchens, food banks, things like that, charity work, so a part-time job, if you can, especially, there is still time. You have almost a month and 2 months to get things in. And I didn't know I wanted to do dentistry until around this time. So I managed to shove everything into 2 months for my application. So like, it's never too late to still work on the personal statement and your and the activities you do before you submit your application. So working in a care home, as I said, customer facing environment, or as a receptionist would be the 3 big jobs that I would try and get. So you can include that in your personal statement. And as I said, for hobbies, sports, team sports like football are great for demonstrating teamwork, instrument, manual dexterity, time commitment. It's really hard to learn instruments. So if you are playing one, or if you have learned one to quite a high degree, that's really impressive. You should definitely put that in. Sports coaching, tutoring, that shows teaching skills. And as a dentist, there's a surprising amount of teaching involved, either as a dentist or even as a dentist student. So that'd be a great skill to include. And for communication, other creative hobbies, just to show that you do have a life outside of academia and you are a well-rounded person. So there's just some ideas. And on to the next slide. So because of COVID, there's a massive reduction in the things you can do, especially as a lot of I think all dental practices aren't willing to take in students for work experience. These are some COVID friendly things you can do in the meantime if you want to continue to work on your personal statement. So volunteering at a call service to check up on vulnerable and elderly people to check if they need any assistance, if they're okay, and grocery shopping for those who can't or still don't want to go out if they're more anxious now or they're still shielding for whatever reason. Working as carer. So the British Dental Association have some blogs as well as on the I Want to Be a Dentist website, and you can read about what it's like being dentist, and there's also some personal statement help blogs on there. The BDA also have articles which may be a little complicated, but it's worth a read if you're interested, and some dental podcasts. And these links below are some links to some free online courses. So they're not paid for, there's no expense. It's an open online course that are all dentistry related. I personally would recommend the Sheffield one, and there's one called Discover Dentistry that I've linked below, like in the slide. I think it's really helpful if you're still looking to put things into practice. That's all.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to be talking to you guys about how you can actually start writing the personal statement, because it can seem really overwhelming at first and you might not know where to begin and how to start wording it. So what I recommend you guys do is don't start with the introduction, because often this has to be the best, like the most well-written part. So it can be quite hard to start off with that one. So if I were you, I'd start off with a list of all of your skills and character traits. So maybe some of the ones I showed you guys earlier in the presentation, and any of those or any other ones that you guys can think of that are relevant to dentistry. So as Mira mentioned, things like teaching and volunteering and all that kind of stuff. If you guys have any of those skills, definitely write them down in a list. So perhaps on like a Word document. And then what you guys need to do is you need to expand that list with examples either from your own sort of experiences or from your own extracurriculars and stuff, or from volunteering that you've seen dentists do. So for example, if you've seen how, for example, in your online work experience, how a dentist talks to different kinds of patients, you can talk about the importance of communication skills that you've observed, right? And you can put that under communication. And so what you want to do is you want to expand on these points and really flesh them out with examples and explanations about how they relate to dentistry and their importance in dentistry. And then at that point, you probably would have almost maybe 4 or 5 different paragraphs, and these would fit really nicely into your personal statement. So if you can make them obviously personal statement worthy, essentially, and just make them sound very professional, then you actually have at that point a big chunk of your personal statement already done. And then at that point, you can worry about your introduction and your conclusion. Now, when you write your introduction and your conclusion, it's really important that first of all, they're very personal to you, because a lot of the time, admissions tutors are going to sit there with a pile of personal statements, and they're not going to they may not completely be engaged in your personal statement if they have 100 more to go. And of course you all can probably understand what I mean. So what you need to do is you need to make your introduction engaging. You can make it personal if you like, so talk about an experience you've had maybe with dentistry, or something that you've seen in your work experience of volunteering that's really impacted you. So that's how I recommend you start it off. And similarly in your conclusion, sort of tie it all together, talk about your traits and how you would fit very nicely into a career in dentistry, how you understand what it's actually like to be a dentist. And yeah, so that's essentially my method of how I wrote my personal statement, and that's how I recommend you guys do it as well. If we can go on to the next slide, please. All right, so this one is actually my personal statement. And I was sort of just going to go through it one paragraph at a time. I'm not going to read everything out, but I'm just sort of going to show you guys what I wrote and how I recommend you guys take some of the things I've done and sort of implement those aspects into your own personal statements. So I actually started off mine talking about my experience with dentistry. And so I compared actually having braces to learning about how orthodontics work on my work experience. So this is really, really important, right? Because one of the reasons you guys do work experience is to first of all see if dentistry is for you, and also gain a realistic insight into what the field is like. And I really tied that all together in my first paragraph. And I also included research from articles and different like websites that I'd read about dentistry from. And that really just shows my interest in the field. And definitely, if you guys can show them that you have experience in the field, that it's impacted you in a certain way, and that you're interested enough to do research from the very first paragraph, then surely you're going to seem that you have a very keen interest in dentistry, right? So so my second paragraph is mostly to do with my shadowing experience, and I linked it to a lot of things like communication skills and resilience, and I also added things like volunteering that I did into that second paragraph. And a lot of the time, a lot of students ask whether you should have a paragraph for work experience. Now, I recommend sort of putting work experience in most of your paragraphs instead of having one designated paragraph just for work experience, if that makes sense, because essentially you want the tutors to constantly see that you guys are that you guys have viewed experience and you guys know what dentistry is all about. And the more you guys can include that in your personal statement throughout the personal statement, the better it is going to be for you guys. And you're going to find that whatever skill you talk about, you could actually potentially talk about you having mentioned, having observed or seen or done that sort of skill in a dental field or in any sort of healthcare setting. So that's really my second paragraph. It's all about my shadowing experience and about volunteering that I've done. And in my third paragraph, I talked about the different skills that I've gained throughout my A-levels and also extracurricular things that I did. So one of those things, for example, was a research project. So I included something that I found out that was very interesting and that I actually linked to dentistry. Now, the research project I did wasn't necessarily about dentistry, but I found a way to link it. So for example, here, let's have a look. It says, essentially I was doing a research project about blood conditions and I linked that to dentistry, that one of the ways to diagnose a blood condition was if people have excessive bleeding after extractions. So this is just one of the ways you guys can link any of your extracurriculars into dentistry as well. And my fourth paragraph, I just talked about some hobbies just to show them that, I do have a life outside of dentistry. I do have a good work-life balance, again, which is a really, really important thing, not just in university, but in your dental career as a whole, because there's going to be times where it's going to be very stressful and you're going to need to be able to have something to essentially allow you to take a break from dentistry because it can get very hectic at times. So I talked about things. So my hobbies I enjoy, like playing guitar and being a senior prefect, really helped me communicate with lots of different people and also just have a way to essentially have some downtime outside of dentistry. And so I just finished off by essentially talking about some of my most important traits and how they relate to dentistry. And that's what you guys need to really do. You need to sort of finish it off strong and sell yourself as much as you possibly can. That was essentially sort of quick review of my personal statement. If you guys do have questions, just feel free to just ask them in the chat. And you can also just find my personal statement on my Instagram here. And I think it's Mira's turn to do hers. Mira, you're muted. Mira, you're muted.
Okay, so,
all right.
I consistently did follow a really similar method to the inside out method when I was writing it in my first year of college. And I think that method is really useful because it allows you to demonstrate all of your skills and you won't miss anything out. And it follows like from school, the PPE paragraph kind of format. So I think you can still apply that. And I have here in my personal statement as well. So I began with why dentistry was appealing to me, and I got pretty straight to the point, and I said the challenge is what interested me. And I went straight into my work experience at a hospital, and I put in a personal anecdote about why the patient case that I saw was really touching to me. And I think having a personal anecdote like that about maybe a case that surprised you would add some sincerity to your personal statement and doesn't make it seem it just makes it seem like they can get to know more about you through putting an anecdote in. It's just what I think. And so I also mentioned what I saw the dentists do, and in my second paragraph, what I saw them do and why I think that contributed towards a better patient experience. And the idea of bringing patient satisfaction and having good patient experience is a big part of dentistry because that's what you do day in, day out. So I wanted to include that. And then in my third paragraph here, I've mentioned like a PPE paragraph, why teamwork is important and where I myself have demonstrated teamwork. So I used to do trampolining and I was so I used to trampolining, but I was a judge, but I wasn't like a big official one. But within those kind of events, you're working with a massive team of people to host like a big trampolining competition. So like the niches, things like that can be really helpful in your personal statement. And finally, I just mentioned other extracurriculars I did, like I did trampolining myself. And through trampolining, when I was a coach, I would always comfort either younger children or even children my age who didn't know how to do a move, but just need some extra reassurance. And I was also like a teaching like section in that, so I mentioned that. And finally, I went through a widening participation scheme with my local university, and through that I did a little like assignment about why dental fear is so prominent and like what can be done to tackle that. And I think having an aspect of dental, they don't expect you to have dental knowledge like in depth, but I think taking the initiative to demonstrate and read around and find out like one little niche thing like how to do a dental implant, and maybe mentioning something about that shows that you've gone out and learned more about dentistry because you're interested in it, is something that maybe you could put in. And finally, I just finished it off with why dentistry is important to me, and like pick me, and these are all the reasons why I should get in. It's just a first draft, so there's just a few typos in it, but I hope I gave you an idea of what to include.
That's great. Thank you, Mira. So now we've got a bit of exciting news for you. So we have a personal statement review service, How I Want to Be a Dentist, and we're doing a giveaway for those of you who attended today. But this isn't the end of the webinar, by the way, so don't just leave. We've got some Q&As and a few more tips at the end. So if the way to enter this giveaway is to simply comment on our recent Instagram post, tag 2 friends, and just share it on your story and tag us so we can enter you to win a free statement review. So I'll talk a little bit about how the statement review works. It's essentially one of our co-directors on our team, like Mira, like Omar, who are current dental students. Now, say if you were applying to, for example, the University of Birmingham, now you can literally select a dental student from our website who studies at the University of Birmingham to review your statement for you. And essentially what we do is use track changes to help guide you and instruct you on where you can improve your statement, what can be reworded better. And we use a mark scheme that we've created to essentially give you a score as well. And so essentially that is your final statement that you send to us. And then what we do is we send that back to you with the track changes, you amend it and you send it back to us again. And one lucky winner will have the opportunity to get this personal statement review completely for free. And all you have to do is, like I've said, is just comment on our recent Instagram post and tag 2 friends and share it on your story. And we'll be announcing the winner tomorrow at 8 p.m. and that will go on our Instagram, and we will DM them personally with like a discount code that you can use. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the personal statement review service that we offer. I Want to Be a Dentist, and we've had many successful students who used the service last year give us great feedback on how drastically the personal statement improved by. And yeah, so that's a little bit about it. On this slide, here's a little bit more about the personal statement service. So you can choose your tutor from a university that you really want to apply for, and it gives you kind of the best chance to get in, because essentially the dental students know what they're doing and we know what we're talking about. So yeah, and the way it works is, like on the screen, you send a final version of your statement, and you get an email confirming that we received it, and then within 72 hours you'll receive like your improved version of your statement and 5 interview style questions that they can also possibly ask you based off your statement. So we not only help you with your statement, but also a bit of interview practice for you there. But yeah, to enter the giveaway, just simply go on our Instagram page. It's I Want to Be a Dentist, and you can enter it from there. But yeah, good luck for all of you who are taking part in the giveaway, and the winner will be announced tomorrow at 8 p.m. And just a few closing tips and techniques before we get into the Q&A section of the webinar. I know that you guys have put in quite a lot of questions in the chat. Here are some final tips based from us. Remember to start early. the UCAS deadline is set in stone, so there's no leeway for you to be late, because it's just not good professionalism, and it's literally a chance for the university to reject you. It's 15th of October 2021 for this year, so mark that in your calendars. And of course, you want to plan ahead, so start writing as soon as you are free. So if you're waiting for your maybe like your GCSE results, or even if you're a year 12 student going into year 13, use this summer holiday quite wisely to be quite productive and actively involved in writing your own personal statement, because no one essentially is going to do that for you. And of course, dentistry is a very competitive course, so you need to have a great personal statement to give you even greater chance to get into dental school. And remember, practice, it takes time. You won't get the statement on your first try, not even on your second try, but it's going to take you quite a lot of tries to get the statement exactly how you want it to be. And remember to link everything back into dentistry. I know that I touched upon this before, but you have to mention skills that will make you a good dental student. Now, I know Mira and Omar discussed some good points in their example statements on what they included, but remember, don't just follow that one pathway. There's many other routes to include how you'd make a good dental student and what sets you apart. Of course, talk about where you're currently at. If you're a gap year student who's reapplying for dentistry, tell them that you're on a gap year. If you're, just straight continuously doing A levels, you can mention the A levels you do, why you pick them. It's a personal statement, so make it personal. Talk about yourself, talk about your hobbies, what interests you, because that not only shows them your personality, but it shows them that you're able to talk about yourself in a very positive manner, and it puts you in a very good light in front of the person who's reading your personal statement. And like I said before, it takes time to get your personal statement to a good standard, and make sure you ask for help when you're stuck. We have our personal statement review service. You can email us if you have any questions about your statement that we can help with. You can also schedule a free call with one of our dental advisors who will literally talk you through any questions that you have about your dental application. And we're here to help. The whole platform of I Want to Be a Dentist is built around helping applicants, so do reach out. And now I'm going to stop talking, and hopefully we've got a couple of questions in the chat. So I'll just scroll up. So Esther asks, any tips on how to make a personal statement sound more formal or technical? Do any of you have any advice on that, Mira or Omar, in regards to how you can make a personal statement sound a bit more formal or technical?
I think including some like niche dental keywords like patient satisfaction or ethical issues that you might see, or
multidisciplinary team. Keywords like multidisciplinary team, they really help a lot. Make it sound very, very formal, and also make it sound like you really know what there is to know about dentistry. Something else I'd say is, if you guys really want to, you can show it to an English teacher of yours, if that's possible. So when I was in sixth form, my form teacher was an English teacher, so I feel like that helped, because they can give like a whole new perspective to your personal statement. So this is especially for me in the last couple of days where I was a few hundred characters over, so I needed some help with that. So English teachers can be really helpful in that sense. They do help to improve vocabulary, and just generally help make it sound more professional. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We've got a couple of questions saying, what if our Instagram account is private? That's completely fine. Just drop us a screenshot of the story that you've put up, and then we can still enter you in the giveaway. That's completely fine with us. Another few questions that we have in the chat is, how heavy is the Ucat used for universities, as somebody's got a very low band 3 in situational judgment? Now, Omar is one of our Ucat tutors, but I'll just let him take over this question. Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, so like if you don't have the best UCAT score, guys, that's totally fine. It's no reason to panic and drop dentistry. But what you guys need to do is you need to apply strategically. And I think, Raza, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have a guide on the website about how different unis use the UCAT. Is that right?
Yes, so we have a standard entry table, which includes up-to-date information on which universities have what cut-off score for UCAT,
Exactly. Yeah.
and how seriously they take different aspects of the UCAT.
Yeah, so some unis don't really look at the situation judgment section. Some of them would have a cutoff score at a certain percentile. So just make sure you do your research, and if you have a good UCAS score, apply to the unis that are offer competitive UCAT scores. And if you don't have such a competitive score, that's totally fine. There's a whole load of unis that will still interview students who don't have the best scores, and a lot of unis also just look at your application as a whole. So whether you've done, you've got really high grades, if you've got a good personal statement. So again, the importance of the personal statement, it all plays into like this one big sort of application process. It's not just the UCAT. So don't panic if the UCAT score isn't the best. Just look into the right unis to apply for and apply strategically. That's what I'd recommend.
Taslima asks, how should you reflect well on experiences without listing them? And a good thing that something that many statements that I've read and looked over, what they do is, it's not about listing like, oh, I'm a good team player, or I have good manual dexterity skills. It's about including activities or skills which make you a good team player. So if you want to talk about working in a multidisciplinary team, you can start off by any volunteering that you did which involved teamwork. You can then say that I took part in this charitable work, which led me to be quite helpful and useful within a team, which shows that I can work within a team. Of course, that's just literally off the top of my head, so make it sound a bit more fancy, but essentially what you want to do is list things that you have done, and then not essentially list, but mention things that you have done, and then include the skills that you've gained from it, and then include how that makes you a good potential for a dental student. What is a word limit for the personal statement? I think it's 4,000 characters. Yeah, 4,000 characters, not roughly, I think it's about 534 words, I think, off the top of my head. But it's definitely is 4,000 characters on UCAS. A lot of questions. I'm trying to get through them all. Sarah asks, if I'm applying for BDS after my current degree, do I need a different personal statement, or can I use aspects of my old personal statement? Do any of you have any tips on people who are potentially reapplying or applying after doing,
I would say you can use aspects, but surely during your degree, you probably gained a lot of unique skills that are going to make you competitive as an applicant. So at that point, those skills you want to include as well. But I mean, if there's things that you feel like you would be useful, so if you've done some work experience, you've got some really good experiences from before you did the degree, then of course you can include those into your personal statement as well. I think it's totally fine. I think as long as maybe it's like 5 years old or so, you can still include that in your personal statement, any kind of experience.
I think because it's your work, it's not, it doesn't count as plagiarism because you're the one who's written that. But surely during your whole degree, there's things that you can't just discredit your whole degree because you've worked quite hard to get through it. So there's definitely things that you can mention that make you an even better candidate than most people because you've gone through that whole university experience. So that's a few tips from our side. Let's see if we have any other questions. If we're not able to do any in-person work experience and only virtual, can we mention in our personal statement the different procedures that were shown, such as root canal treatment as a pre-recorded video, or would that not really count? Any tips on that, Mira or Omar?
Okay. I think it would be relevant, but I know Cardiff for sure still requires, like, for example, Cardiff still requires 2 weeks minimum work experience, but in real life work experience. So it's incredibly relevant, and I would include it in your personal statement. But if your uni requires in real life work experience, I don't think it'll replace that requirement. I don't think it'll count towards that minimum requirement if there is one. But you should definitely include it in your personal statement. I think it will be really good.
Yeah, definitely. I think I totally agree with Mira. Make sure you guys do your research about what unis actually need from you in terms of work experience. But also, a lot of them are quite understanding of the situation of COVID and everything, and it is very unique and stuff. But something else is that one of the things that's really important is that you guys, it's great to mention things like, all the treatments you've seen, but it's the more important things that you could mention are the interactions between dentists and patients. I think a lot of students sort of overlook that. And I think that's really one of the most important reasons you guys should do work experience, is to see how dentists interact with different patients, how they interact with their team. And those things are really things you can't really watch as well in an online course or in a video. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think, well, The question that we get asked quite frequently is, oh, I don't have any work experience for this year, and I'm kind of panicking as well. Well, what I advise most applicants who are in that situation where they haven't secured any work experience is, number one, the universities are quite understanding.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't know about the situation. And I know that Leeds University openly said in a webinar that they were running that they don't require any applicant to have any work experience. But what I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to do is, say if you have done online research, you need to mention that, saying that on this in this time period, this is what I did, where I actively went online. I read articles and blogs written from dentists. I attended work experience courses which are online, because what you've done, two things there, is you've shown that you've used your initiative. So regardless of the setback, which is COVID, you've still persevered, and you've still gone ahead and to actively look for work experience. And what that shows the university is that you're quite resilient, in terms of, you were faced with a problem where your work experience got cancelled or you couldn't find anything, but you overcame it by doing all this extra research, which also shows that you're dedicated. And for those of you in the chat asking for like resources and additional like work experience courses, there's Discover Dentistry, which I think Mira touched upon, but there's also our work experience course. And what we do is it covers things like dental instruments, what we use, procedures that are quite common in dentistry, NHS versus private dentistry. And what that does is essentially give you information not only for your personal statement, but for your interviews as well as your just general dental knowledge. It's quite useful for that. And in terms of extra article reading that you guys can do, we actually have blogs from dentists on our website. It's under the title Life as a Dentist or a Dental Student. And we've got people from all around the country to write blogs for us, which explain what a day in the life of a dental student is like, or a dentist is like. Now, if you've read those, then it gives you quite a good idea of, you know, what you can actually expect. And that's something that you can also mention in your personal statement, as well as include that as part of kind of like your work experience, because it's something that you've read online. And yeah, that's something that I would definitely recommend you guys to do. So that can be accessed. You can access that on our website. It's completely free. I believe it's under free resources or getting into a dental school. And Sarah asked, where on the website can we find the document? It should be standard entry table. So if you type in on Google, I want to be a dentist, standard entry table, you should be able to find that out. And we've got a lot of questions which I'm trying to
We can
get.
help out the Ucat in any way. Omar, do you want to cover what we offer?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Someone's asking, do you have help for Ucat? As in, I think, do you provide any services to help them with the
Oh,
UCAS?
okay. Yeah, so I want to be a dentist. We have like UCAT tuition, so you guys can essentially book however many hours you want with the UCAT tutor. So I'm one of the UCAT tutors this year. I believe there's 3 more. So you guys can choose your tutor, choose when you guys want to have tuition done. And essentially it's like one-on-one tuition with you, making sure you guys understand all the sections. If you guys have any specific questions or specific sections you want to go through, we work through worked examples. And yeah, I've done several sessions this year and it's been really great. I've had some good feedback from students. So that's one of the main services we offer. We've also got a question booklet, and we've also got like a UCAT e-lessons course that we're running at the moment as well. So we do have a variety of services. If you go on our website as well, you can, under courses and services, there's a couple of UCAT ones there. So if you guys have a look at that, you can see what you like.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've got a few more questions. Can we use the work experience we've done in year 10 in our personal statement? Now, I would say what I'd mainly suggest is any work experience that you've done is quite relevant if it's helped you increase your dental knowledge in some way, or you found out some interesting things about it. You can definitely use it, but there should be some additional like complementary things that you can definitely say. So like from year 10 to year 12, surely you've done some additional work, or you've you know, found out a few more things about dentistry that you can mention. But yeah, definitely if you've you can mention the work experience you've done in year 10 in your personal statement. That should be fine.
Someone said, could you please say the skills you need again? So I think the 4 core skills are communication, teamwork, empathy, and leadership, as well as then I think second to that, but still important, would be manual dexterity, resilience, commitment, and those kind of soft skills. So they're just the skills mentioned in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, a few other things that we've got in the chat is, can you mention things you are doing but have not yet finished, i.e. like a dental nursing course? And yeah, in your personal statement, it's quite earlier on. Even if you've taken a gap year or you're completing like a course during that time of writing your personal statement, you can definitely mention that, because the universities know that not everything is complete by like, you know, October time. So it's completely fine. Is there a topic of interest, something that we must mention? There's not necessarily like I can't really pinpoint something, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just naturally, like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of rolls out naturally when you have like an interest in dentistry. You'll just find that specific point to mention. Yeah, and
I think admission tutors have like a big like a very fine-tuned radar of if people are being sincere in the past statement, or if someone's like making up and doesn't really understand what they saw. But I think when you're sincere about something and you have a real topic of interest you like, they'll most of the time be able to tell if you really mean it or not.
Definitely, and I think like the whole point of the personal statement is to show them that you are interested in dentistry. So one of the main ways you can do that is through extra reading, because obviously we don't really learn about dentistry in secondary school. So only by doing extra reading, like articles, and like for the record, guys, you don't have to be reading like articles and books 24/7. Like if you guys just sort of keep up, maybe once a week, just have a look through some dental articles and find 1 or 2 that interest you, then I do think that's enough. Don't you guys agree? Especially for like personal statement and interviews, like on a regular basis, looking at some articles and just seeing what interests you guys and just reading more about that. I do think that's more than enough to actually show that you are interested in dentistry. And you know, you don't have to be a professor just yet. You know, there's a long road ahead in dental school. So
yeah, although it's competitive, it's not impossible. So like the statement you wrote might be like an amazing statement, so don't underestimate yourself. It's hard, but the statement's probably very good, especially if you're like actively participating in these webinars and like are really interested.
Yeah, exactly.
You've probably got a lot more than you think.
And I mean, everyone here probably like you probably care about getting into dental school. So
yeah,
you're already a good start. So
yeah, we've got another question. It's roughly about the UCAT. There's like a UCAT e-lesson and a one-to-one. What are the main differences between the two? So the one-to-one is exactly what it is. It's a one-to-one session, and the e-lessons, you're in a group of 5 people, and you have monthly lessons. So you have 5 lessons in 1 month, and we cover the whole of the UCAT. We're currently running the August lessons. Omar's running that, and we're thinking of doing the September lessons as well. So if you are interested, just drop us a DM and we can arrange like a UCAT session for you. And yeah, that's the main 2 differences.
I just want to add also the UCAT e-lessons, they're a bit more structured. So every week we go through one section of the UCAT, whereas the one-to-one sessions, it's very personal to you guys and what you guys prefer to cover in that session as well. Yeah,
definitely.
Someone's topic of interest, they've mentioned they research patient's ability to consent to a treatment. I think that is the vital thing of dentistry, consent. Yeah. I think that's a very valid topic of interest, and you should definitely include it. Like I did, like it wasn't a topic of interest, but I happened to do like a little course and maybe do an assignment. So mine was dental care, so I mentioned it, and I think consent is even more vital to dentistry and is more core than that. So I think you should put in.
We've got a question on which is the most hardest year of dentistry, or is it all? Well, I don't know. I haven't gone through all 5 years, so I can't really say which year was hardest. But I think if you balance your time well and you prioritize like your revision and studies, then everything's achievable. There's people who've done it in the past, and you know it's not impossible. What would you guys say about that?
Yeah, I mean, you've done more.
So
this dentistry harder than A-level. I've managed my time better in dentistry than A levels. So
Me too.
personally, I find dentistry a bit easier because I've got it together a bit more. But especially as I've grown up. But I think the content is harder than A levels. But if you're older and more mature, I think that makes it a lot easier. So
Definitely.
that's not really a direct answer, but
I
I
think
guess
first year is definitely a lot easier than A levels, just because there's like that pressure lifted. Because in A levels, there's so much you have to do, especially if you're applying to dentistry. There's all of these hurdles you have to go through in the application process. Once you actually get in, all that pressure is sort of just gone, and you're just left with just dentistry to do. So I think, yeah, so far it is easier, is a bit easier than A levels, but obviously as you go on, apparently the years do get harder. So
I guess we'll find out with that,
yeah,
with that
yeah.
one. So Daisy says, I mentioned in my personal statement that after my work experience, I went on to research when a patient's ability to consent to treatment must be considered. It was very brief and not sure if it counts as a topic of interest. Well, I think, well, do you guys have any tips in regards to that? Or
I went over the dental beard part that I wrote, and I think it's a valid topic of interest. But if you guys have anything else to add?
yeah,
No,
I think as long as you've written like something unique, which is different, like not many people would have thought of that, and it actually makes sense what you're trying to get across, then that should be fine. That counts as like your topic of interest. For me, it was squamous cell carcinoma in like my first opening paragraph of how like dentists not only like treat people, but they also like diagnose like serious conditions which could definitely cause long-term or if not tragic effects to the human body. So that's what I talked about in my introduction, and then went on to explain a little bit about what I did in my work experience and how that all like fused together and interested me in dentistry. Arusa asked a question in regards to the University of Leeds. Leeds requires applicants to do the BMAT. Do you have any tips or resources that were helpful? For the BMAT, I mainly used question papers. I felt like the BMAT was a much more fairer test than the Ucat because it's all science-based and maths-based and English-based. And I felt like for the Ucat, for the BMAT, the more questions you did, you kind of started to see a pattern. So if you go on to Cambridge testing, I believe it is, you have like a list of BMAT papers that you can essentially use. And yeah, I just printed off a lot of questions and did them, and then roughly about 3 to 4 weeks of preparation was completely fine. Do you have what advice do you have for students who are applying for pre-dental entry? So for BDS 6 years.
So I didn't do pre-dental myself. I helped a friend who did, and I think what's integral is, even though you might have taken like physics and maths, for example, showing why your interest has changed to dentistry, what makes you passionate about it, having all those things everyone else has, like work experience, using online courses nowadays, doing the healthcare related volunteering, things like that. You don't learn anything about dentistry in biology and chemistry. So I think if you just all follow the main rules of personal statement and what you need to include, I think that'll be fine. And then going into interview stages, you can tailor your question just as everyone else. So I don't think there's too much of a difference. I'm not sure what happens in the first year of a pre-dental course, but I think they just catch you up with all the science things you might have missed, like DNA and things like that. So I think you just apply as normal. I didn't include anything about my A levels in my personal statement or interviews. It's not really, they're not as relevant to dentistry as like you might think.
There's quite a few questions about the EPQ. Did any of you take an EPQ?
Or... No, I didn't.
Okay, sorry, I didn't as well. But
yeah.
What I've heard from a lot of like fellow dental students and who've done EPQs is the EPQ. It's only relevant to mention it if it's something like dental related. Because if you've talked about something completely different in your EPQ, then I don't really see how that fits into a personal statement.
Interest. Yeah.
Whereas if you've genuinely done like an EPQ because you've been interested in dentistry, then you can mention that as something that you've done in like your spare time, and you've gone on to write this report about, I don't know, dental implants or whatever the topic of your EPQ is. But yeah, if it's relevant, you can mention it. But I think if it's not relevant to dentistry or has nothing to do with like dental related, then there's no point. Any tips for cutting down and keeping like the personal statement concise for?
I was swallowed the thing. I just cut out a whole paragraph that I thought was the weakest because I started doing the thing where you like take little words out of every single sentence.
Yeah.
But if you're really over it, I think it's best to cut out the paragraph that you think is the least relevant, and that way
Yeah.
everything written is still detailed, informative, and you've not glazed over everything really briefly. So that's what my approach. It's like really hurts deleting that paragraph that you spent so much time on, but I think that's the best way to do it to keep your.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mara. Also, like back to the skills that you were mentioning. So the most important skills like communication, leadership, empathy, and I think teamwork, you said. So the first step is to look at any of the paragraphs you have. And if the skills mentioned in those aren't any of those or are quite far away from those, then maybe that's one of your weaker paragraphs. So yeah.
Someone said they have the entry requirements, but they don't have straight A stars. So most of the people I know don't have straight A.
I didn't have straight A stars. But
I
most
don't
people that have straight A stars, guys,
I think
don't
you
worry.
need to meet the entry requirements unless I think. Well, from my research when I was applying, I feel like King's is more academic. You can like elaborate on it, so maybe they value like the A-level grades a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, they are more academic in the sense, I think King's and Bart's have minimum grades of A star AA, but honestly, as long as you have A star AA, that's really all that matters, right? Like, it's not like you're not going to get in because you have an A star and two A's as opposed to three A stars, right? Because that's like, it's very unlikely. Very few people are going to have straight A stars. And also you're going to find out when you get into dental school, it's not really about how academically gifted you are.
Especially like in A levels, what your grades are. I don't think they matter.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't matter. Like once you get into dental school, no one cares about that.
Yeah, I think as long as you meet the minimum entry requirements listed on the website, you can definitely apply because they don't have a reason to reject you. If you're below the entry requirements, what I would recommend is for you to, number one, like explore your options. Maybe if you're quite below the entry requirements, it's like a straight up kind of rejection, like
it could be
in the nicest way possible. But you know, there are alternative routes like a gap year, you know, applying as a graduate maybe, or doing a different degree and then considering to apply to dentistry. I've got a question about, is there a lot of pressure as a dental student? Did you ever think about dropping out, any of you two?
I don't think I felt the full force of a dental degree because I had COVID. I've had online exams for both my first and second year. And a lot of them like were multiple choice, so you had to write an essay for them. So I don't know about your guys' uni, but I haven't felt how hard it can be. And coming to third year, I think I'll realize that it's a little bit more than I took on in first and second year. But I don't think I don't know anyone who's thought of dropping out that they've vocalized. It isn't that bad. You just have to stay on top of it, like everything else. It's achievable, doable. If you're coming to webinars and you academically have the minimum grade requirement, I think you'll do it. You'll be fine.
Final few questions. Just put your question in the chat if you still have a question after this one. But is the dentistry interview hard? I know we're going a bit off topic with the personal statement side of things, but what was your guys' experience?
It's honestly not as bad as you guys think. It's not as daunting. I mean, I did 2 interviews at King's and Bart's, and the Bart's one was like a panel interview. They were quite friendly for the most part, and I don't think I've heard like a lot of bad experiences from any students. And also the King's one, it kind of all just goes quickly, and you don't realize it's gone so fast. So I wouldn't worry too much, especially at this point. Just take it one step at a time. Make sure you guys are prepping for the Ucat, writing your personal statements. And the interview time will come, trust me, and you will spend some time preparing. But that's for later. Don't worry about this one now. But definitely don't let it put you off. Like if you want to apply to dentistry, don't think that if you're not great at interviews or anything, don't worry. I mean, I'd never done an interview before my King's interview for dentistry, so definitely do not worry about the interview process as a whole. But yeah, just take it one step at a time.
And there's so much preparation. I know interviews are technically like on the spot. There's so much preparation you can do for them.
Yeah.
I had interviews for King's, Birmingham, Sheffield, Manchester, but it wasn't. A lot of unis follow the same thing. It's MI, same questions. Like the only difference might be like, why do you want Manchester? Like, why do you want to come to Manchester? Why do you want to come to King? Maybe you might want to include some specific research each of those unis do, but overall, the interviews you can prep for them just as much as you might prep for a personal statement. Just don't memorize the answers, make them into bullet points. they're not as unprepared and like on the spot as it might come across in the first place.
Another question we've had is in the end, is the 5 years worth it? But from my perspective, I don't know, because I'm like a second year student, but hopefully, I hope it's worth it. We've got another question. If you apply as a graduate with a 2-1 or a first, how much do GCSEs and A-level grades matter? I think it's mainly the degree that matters. It's not essentially your A-level grades. They're kind of out the equation. If you're applying as a graduate, they look at what you've currently achieved in your degree, and that's why the whole postgraduate applications are quite different. So hopefully that helps. Other questions. Do you guys do MMI interviews or panel? I did MMI.
I did
Yeah.
3 MMIs and then 1 panel.
What about you, Omar?
Yeah, I did one of each. So I did an MMI at King's and a panel at Barts. So
yeah, so hopefully that helps you guys. Do you offer any courses or sessions with helping with interviews? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We have interview sessions which will be running 1-to-1 that you can book, as well as we do mock interviews that can be either MMI or panel, where you choose a dental tutor from the university that you have the interview with. And what we do is we create a university-specific MMI, and we go through that with you and test for MMI or panel, and we test you and give you a score at the end. And I think why most applicants find that useful is because am I right in saying like your first interview is mainly your hardest because you don't know what to expect?
Yeah.
So we essentially take that fear away. So this year, it was kind of really great for us because we were helping out students and the interviews were online. And so they got a real taste for what they could expect. This year, we have some exciting news regarding interviews. We might be doing in-person interview days, which we'll announce on our Instagram, but you guys are here, so you can hear that first. But yeah, we're planning to do in-person interview days. And yeah, hopefully if we're in your city, do pop down. It will be a great way to get a feel for the MMI and panel, as well as get tips from us and meet us in person. And we've got another question. Is it worth mentioning MOOCs for wider reading if I have a photograph on my dental related EPQ and research from the perspective of not wasting characters? I'm not sure you can
you can't upload photos from
put photographs in your personal statement. It's got to be all characters. So
yeah.
I mean, you can definitely mention MOOCs as like your wider reading, but yeah, what you can do to actually cut it down is, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't try and mention the same thing twice. Like if you've done work experience and that's taught you teamwork, don't mention like later on I play football and that's
I don't know. Tomorrow I meant paragraph, not photograph. you misread that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
if I have a paragraph on my dental related EPQ and research. Yeah, I mean, like you can mention it, but like I just said, try not to repeat what you're trying to say and get across, because that really wastes characters. Any other questions that we haven't gone through? What would be your best tips for preparing for the UCAT? Any quick tips, Omar, from your side?
Time management, learn to manage your time, do as much time practice as possible, don't practice sort of just without timing yourself, and just grind away at questions every day for 6 weeks and you should do really well. In a nutshell, that's what I recommend. Yeah.
You start early, don't leave it to the last minute.
Definitely, yeah. I'd say just give yourself 6 weeks, do maybe 200 questions a day, and there's no way you won't do your best. That's all I can guarantee.
How many hours of a day of UCAT work would you recommend?
Ooh, maybe an hour to start off with, and then increase as you get closer. You're going to get a bit more maybe nervous and you want to prepare more. So maybe just two hours a day, maybe consistently for 6 weeks.
What books do you recommend for wider reading?
Have any dental books?
Maybe not books. They might be a bit heavy, and I
yeah.
think there are ways of getting
I'd recommend articles, I think.
Yeah. Or blog posts.
Or blog posts, yeah.
Yeah, those are both good ways. I actually read a book. I read The Smile Stealers. It's a book which covers like the history of dentistry and how it all like developed in its stages. I mean, yeah, to save yourself time, you could definitely like read articles, and that there's so much information out there, especially on our website now as well, that literally summarizes everything for you. But yeah, I read the Smile Stealers. The British Dental Journal is a great like way to keep yourself updated, as well as like there's a couple of websites out there as well which have like the latest news in dentistry, which is quite interesting, that you can check out. And I think, is that it? Oh, can you please explain the different interview types? I'll quickly cover this. So it's MMI and panel. Panel interviews is kind of like having like a conversation with like a group of like assessors, if that makes sense. So they're interviewing you. There might be a panel of 4 existing staff members, which question you about like how do you want to do why do you want to do dentistry, and it's more of a conversation. Whereas MMI, you have different stations which are timed, and you have different tasks, and different stations test different things like communication or your reason as to why you want to study dentistry. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question briefly. Any other questions that you guys have?
There is one left, which is the worst thing to study in dentistry. I think it depends on what you like to learn. I didn't like first year because it was all about, I mean, I'm sure you need the content somewhere, but it was like the kidney, the lungs, like the liver, and like the whole body organs. And I think it's fun to learn for that year, but I mean, it wasn't my favorite because it wasn't relevant to dentistry. But in second year, we had a module on head and neck anatomy, and I found it incredibly fun, and like I really enjoyed reading about the anatomy because it was relevant and it would just cater to the way I like to learn. So it's really subjective, but I think the worst things are the ones that are the least relevant because it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
You towards the goal you want to reach.
I think that's mainly it with the questions.
I think that's all,
yeah, I think that's mainly it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. We hope you found this useful. We will be announcing the giveaway winner on our Instagram tomorrow at 8 p.m. We hope that this webinar has given you a bit more insight into like your personal statement for those of you who are considering to write it and get started with it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for listening. If you have any other questions, DM us on Instagram, reach out to us via email. We're always here to help you guys. But yeah, we hope that you've found this session useful. And yeah, hopefully see you guys at the next webinar. And we have our upcoming book, which is Securing Your Place at UK Dental School 2022. So when that is released, that should be out in the next couple of weeks, which I'm really excited for. And that covers literally everything from your UCAT to your personal statement to applying to dental school, literally everything. It's an amazing piece of work that we've all contributed. And one last question, when is the next webinar? Hopefully the next webinar we'll probably do one closer to the personal statement time, maybe another one like a refresher just before you guys submit it. Or even like an interview webinar when you guys start having your interviews. But
or a BMAT one.
Yeah, or a BMAT one. Yeah,
get some of the BMAT tutors to do a BMAT one as well.
Definitely.
So
yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for us or anything else that we can include, just let us know. I completely forgot about this, but I actually have a poll